Welcome to the Fence and Deck Mastery Podcast, where we discuss cutting-edge techniques, industry trends, and business insights to take your fence or deck company to the next level and dominate your competition. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Fence and Deck Mastery Podcast. I'm your host, Alex Danner, and also the owner and founder of Fence and Deck Marketers, which is a marketing agency that works only with fencing and decking businesses. Today I have another great episode that I've been really excited for. I have Barrett Pribyl from Denver Fence Guys, which is out in Colorado. And Barrett's really done a good job growing Denver Fence Guys from the ground up, really from nothing, and turn it into a really successful company. So I wanted to bring him on here, and he's going to tell the story a lot better than I can. But anyways, Barrett, thanks for coming on the podcast. How you doing, man?
Absolutely, buddy. Appreciate you having me, man.
Yeah, me too. And a little backstory there. So, Barrett's been a client for about a year now.
Yep.
And he's quickly become one of our favorite clients. He's fun to work with, and he actually takes action quickly, and does all the stuff he says he's going to do. So it's always fun to work with guys like him. But he's also a big hunter, so he's always posting some Instagram reels, and I'm following around on his life and all the fun stuff he's doing. But yeah, he's a busy guy, and you had kind of wrangle him in. I think we were trying to plan this for, I don't know, at least several months, but we finally got it on the calendar, and I was kind of I really wanted to do it because he's built a successful company. He's able to spend a lot of time with family and the things he likes to do. So he's kind of built that, balance that everybody's always looking for. So I figured we could kind of interview him and, figure out his story. So, but Barrett, if you could just kind of, introduce yourself, your story, your background, maybe like your history kind of leading up to Denver Fence Guys, and, how that all got started.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, once again, Barrett Pribyl, Denver Fence Guys. Really, the reason we got together too is because I saw your pictures as well online with hunting, and we had a lot of similar interests. So what's crazy is this company started with me in my late 20s. I was a mortgage broker back in 2006, 7, and that industry was changing, and the government was getting involved and regulating stuff. And I had bought a house at that time. I needed a fence, so I built a fence with a friend that had a lot of knowledge and had been a foreman for another fence company. And we built a fence, had a lot of fun doing it. I'd never even really run a circular saw before that. And gosh, I felt so good after getting done accomplishing something I built in my backyard that kept my dog in, and it was beautiful, and I just felt accomplished being able to build something. And I was like, I really like that. And then that kid, his name was Joshua Jorgensen, kid I have a lot of respect for. Back from Iowa and Illinois, where I was originally from. He taught me really how to build a fence from the beginning. And he called me a week or so after we got done building my fence and said, hey, he said, I got an opportunity to build a fence for someone else. I need the money to buy the materials. He said, if you want to come with me, I'll split the profit with you. So I ended up doing that. And then, sure enough, after building a few fences, I let the whole mortgage thing go and hopped into fencing full time. And another thing that was really attractive to me, being in the Midwest, we couldn't build fence December through March because of the frost in the ground. And guess what? That lined up with hunting season. So I was able to have my time and make my money 3/4 of the year, and then have my time off to go hunting, which meant everything to me at the time. So it just kind of really lined up. And out here in Denver, we are fortunate that we're able to build fence year round, but it's definitely slower in the winter. And slowly built this company over time. I always talk about walking, not running. And every year I pick up another guy or two, and they typically have similar interests as me. They like to hunt, they like to fish. We like our slower time in the winter to go after, different hunting trips, and just have a little less responsibility in the winter. So it kind of worked out well with the fence industry to give me the time to do the things that I really love to do. And like you said, that's changed over the years. I have a little 2-year-old boy now and a wife. And so, yeah, we have a lot of flexibility. So I love that. That's something that's always been very attractive to me, because as much as I chase, being successful with my business, I really value my time in the great outdoors and with my family and friends. So it's been important,
Yeah.
as much as anything.
Yeah. And you always do look like you're having a blast. I mean, whenever I see you're probably one of the few people I watch the stories of. He's always doing something cool or traveling. And I mean, quite honestly, it's kind of living the life that everybody always like works so hard to get to, like obviously you work and you have to do stuff, but you really
Yeah.
do to take that time off. Whereas I don't know, it seems like a lot of people don't get to that point or don't really take off either,
Yeah.
time.
Well, one thing about me though, I'm always going to put that energy and effort into my responsibilities. I always talk to my guys about, I'll never go to bed at night without making sure I've gotten back to every email. I don't leave anything on the table. I make lists for stuff that I need to take care of the next day. So I've always been very responsible with that. But at the same time, it's been very rewarding. But I think back to when my wife moved out here in 2014, and at that time I ran maybe 1 or 2 crews. I was still building fence. I was still invoicing. I was still the sales guy. I was still having to put my ads on Craigslist to make the phone ring and network with other people to get opportunities to bid fence. And at that point in my life, it was waking up at 6:30 in the morning, running to Home Depot, grabbing my materials, building fence all day, and then getting home and getting up on my old roll top desk and getting the computer out and shooting out invoices. And I had a file system, to make sure that I wasn't missing anybody's payment, and following up with people. And I think probably at the max of it too, probably 2016, 17, my phone was ringing 40 times a day, and I was doing all those things as well. So I've earned where I'm at now and have a lot more flexibility. But it was very busy for a while, no doubt. But I have always, with this business, I have always, no matter who has come in uh, to my life at the Denver Fence Guys and I hired, I've always tried to shape the job around them that fits them the best. And as a result, there's kind of some weird positions at my company too that just happen to work the best for what the person's best at and for what they want to do. But for me, I've always strive to have flexibility. So I'm able to do my job from anywhere at this point. But I really concentrate on trying to be back here for our Tuesday sales meetings. We bring in the entire sales team. We bring in our entire office is here. Our yard manager comes in. So we spend a lot of time on Tuesdays going over all that. And when I'm not here, it still happens. But of course, I'm the centerpiece of the Denver Fence Guys. So if I'm not here, it's probably not quite as long as meeting, and they kind of don't touch on kind of everything I would. So I try to make it a point to be here on those. And we have our office meeting on Wednesday. So I try to be here for that stuff and try to plan my schedule around then. But there's certain times I don't make it. But I have designed my job where I can pretty much do it from anywhere. And and I've kind of figured out all my metrics through the years too, so I have kind of a meter showing me how things are running, and down to the point of how much tear out did we have this week. Okay, we had 775 feet of tear out of 6 foot tall cedar privacy fence. Well, I've got that down to a metric of how many dumpsters are going to be turned over that week. So that, I pay attention to all those numbers. Then on the very end of the week on Friday, all my guys, and I consider I've got 4 or 5 right hand men guys. We all get in on a group email, and they all have to send in all the reports for the week. So, it's taken a lot of time to get to this point, but trust me. And I just got done with a whiteboard that had about 30 things on it that I went over with 15 of us today. If there's one issue in this company, we're going to address it, and we're going to ensure that it doesn't happen again. And we're going to put a process into place. And with that being said, we're not a perfect company, but we strive to be great. So It's taken a lot of effort to get to this point, Alex, and it does look like I get away quite a bit, but I have a really good hold on this company, and it's taken great effort and great care to get to this point. And you know what? I can't take all the credit. I have a lot of great people that have been with me for a long time. We have very little turnover here, and I'm great because they're great.
Yeah. And that's why I was so excited about it. Not to make it sound like all you're doing is vacation or anything like that.
Right.
But I mean, if you look at Denver Fence Guys on Google, I mean, 400 plus now, I think. High
Yep.
300s. Yeah. So I mean, it's like 400 reviews, and they're all mostly 5 stars. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of the, I guess, the dream, where people are taking care of things and you don't have to worry about it so much, and you can have that time away. But like Barrett said, he obviously earned it. And also what Barrett was saying in the beginning, where he was saying, we wake up at 6:30 and you're going to Home Depot, and then you're getting all the materials and you're building, then you're invoicing. I'm sure there's a lot of people listening there that sounds extremely familiar. So that's why I'm really excited for the rest of this, to kind of show maybe like the phases of how you got to, where you started, and kind of, I guess, where you think things progressed, or maybe there's some things that really stuck out that when you started utilizing it, it really, made things happen, and I guess automated things, whatever the case may be. So what I was curious is, like, is there any phases or like turning points that you had, from the beginning, where you were just like overworked, stressed, all that? Um, did you notice any kind of like periods in time where you started to, like, you're like, oh, okay, this was a big milestone, and then you had another big milestone? Anything that stuck out there, that really kind of led up to where you're at now?
Yeah, that's a great question. As I look back, there has been a lot of times where I know that I could do a lot of different things. And it's like, man, you know what? Maybe I'm just going to go sell real estate. Maybe I'm just going to sell lumber. Maybe I'm just gonna go back to one crew, because you're absolutely right as far as these milestones, and this is not easy. And even running the business when it's just you and another guy or two, um, it's not easy, but it sure is a heck of a lot easier than building multiple crews. And I see that because I have an eye on my competition all the time. There's always new fence companies popping up, and you get that company that's got 55-star reviews, and all they got's 5-star reviews, right? And let's think back. Okay, I remember being that guy that sold the fence to the people. Then I was the guy building it, and I was the guy there to collect the final payment. And I was there along the building process. So if there was any hiccups on anything, I had that relationship with them, and I felt like it was fairly easy to please that customer because I was involved from the beginning to the end. Now you look at us and we got 10 crews, right? So I don't have 10 Barretts out there. So now I have to rely on everyone else to do the job that I did. And a big word around here is care. Do they care as much as I do? Well, that's why we have all these meetings. That's why I'm out in the lumber yard when we're loading up guys in the morning. That's why I'm constantly patting guys on the back. That's why when there's issues, we bring people in and say, this is not acceptable. This is what we need to do. But all of that is a whole nother skill than just out there running that fence crew and building that fence and learning how to, put up picket nails straight and to pick out the good 2x4s and, to do a good job of cleaning up afterwards. So there just gets to be challenges to growing a business large. And I see a lot of successful small fencing companies out there, and I see very few guys that are able to grow fence companies large and keep up that quality. So, as far as milestones go, um, I was fortunate too that back in 2011, I mean, Fence Guys started in 2007 back in a little town of Moline, Illinois, which was also part of Iowa pretty much. It's part of the Quad Cities, 2 towns in Illinois, 2 towns in Iowa. And um, I started it back then. I did fence for a couple years, and then I decided to move to Colorado and I didn't want to do fencing anymore. I didn't think. I was like, I'm going to get into something else. You know, fencing's been fun for a couple years, whatever. Well, moved out here to the big city, and I realized, hey, I need money, and what do I know? So I got back into fencing. I worked for another company around here. They didn't they didn't care like I cared. I would sell these people and I would just get nothing but complaints on phone calls. I mean, that's not true. Not nothing but complaints, but it hurt my feelings because I knew I could do better than them. And they were probably the biggest fence company in Colorado at the time. I didn't like the way they cared for their employees. I didn't like the way they cared for their customers. So I got started on my own, and getting back to, come full circle here, built a website in probably 2011, and I had some friends that had went to school for marketing around here, and they built me a really good website. They got me going on Yelp. They got me going on the Google page, and they started doing a lot of stuff that most people weren't doing. So my phone started ringing a lot. It took a couple years to get off the ground. At first, I just did repairs and stuff like that. But once it really started rolling, it was uh phone was ringing more than I could possibly build fences and even quote these jobs. So what do? Like, I had to let phone calls go to voicemails and get back to people and just be straightforward and honest with people. So I started growing into those leads, but once again, I didn't want to run before I could walk. And that's been one of the things about the fence guys too. I know other guys that started these companies and just full blast, go into marketing, and it's a rough road for them, and then they get financially stressed. And one thing is, I've never had any debt on this company, and I've never ever had a sweat making payroll, and that's because I've slowly but surely built this company. So as far as milestones go, I've always cared and been upfront and honest with people, and I've slowly built to where we're at. I'm lucky that we had the opportunities we had early on. I think one thing that's coming to me right now, Alex, as far as a milestone goes, and it's a little more recent in my head, is we kind of hit a wall as far as, you think back 2017, 18, one of my biggest problems was the phone was ringing too much. And then you grow this company to the size where it is, where we can handle that many calls. And then you go through COVID, where it was just bonkers, and leads were coming at you from all different ways. And you're gonna love this part, because we hit a wall though. We quit growing. And it's like, oh boy, okay. Well, now the milestone is, okay, the next step is we need to get going on marketing. Yes, we've had a good website. Yes, we've had this and that, but we weren't checking all the boxes. And we didn't have professionals like yourself helping us. So that's kind of been a big milestone for me recently, was taking that next step and continuing growth of the company, with the marketing side of it. And you always hear a lot of companies too, and these are big, successful guys, private jets, boo, 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 boo. I got a marketing company, and we're a decent installation company. Good for you. I'm glad you're making a lot of money. But that's not what I'm about at the end of the day. My father didn't raise me to do that. I'm here to be an asset to the community. I want to take care of the people that work for me. I want to take care of my customers. I want to bend over backwards. And that's as a result of those good reviews. So that means more to me than ultimately money. And I am getting into marketing now. I might be a little bit, the past couple years anyway, I might be a little bit behind the ball on that. I could have been bigger. But look what a staple the Denver Fence Guys is in our community. My dad always asks, like, hey, how many fences you guys sell this week? And he never ever wants to hear how much money I made or how much. It's beyond the point. He just says, think of how many happy customers that you have. And that's just a great feeling, and that's what I live for. So that's kind of my story. If I step down to another milestone other than the marketing one that's more recent, I think another milestone was me kind of giving up my phone. My phone was ringing 40 times a day, right? Voicemails, couldn't handle it. I was letting some people down because I couldn't pick up my phone. I love when a business owner picks up the phone and answers it. He's there. And I gave up my phone and hired an answering service to answer my phone. And at that point, too, this was at the end of 2018, October. I remember it because it was a big deal to me. My sales manager took over all the leads. No longer was I answering the phone, no longer were the leads coming to me, but they were going to him. And all of a sudden he started dispersing them. And then there's a lot of art in dispersing the leads to the right guys and knowing what area it's in, and what salesman fits best for this. And, you just don't throw them out there. So anyways, there's been a lot of trust I had to build before I got to that point. But that was another really big point, was me giving up the phone. And that gave me a lot of freedom. And then I started to be able to handle more quality stuff and manage more relationships, and not kind of just the incoming calls and some of that. So that was another big point. And then I would say another milestone before that would have been um, getting my first shop. My When I first moved to Denver, my backyard was a lumber yard, and I kept my trailer back there. And I was in a neighborhood that nobody has, like, there was alleys. So I had to find a property where I could build a double drive gate, back my trailer in there, keep all my lumber there. And so, like, that was a big milestone too. And that was a big step with growing the company, was actually getting a shop and having a spot where everybody got together and all of our materials together and buying lumber racks. And one thing I did miss in there too, and another thing that's been very big for me, was taking the step of buying bulk wholesale lumber instead of buying lumber packs at a time. That was another really big step, and a big financial one for us as well. So I would say those are kind of all the biggest things. Um, and then, all the little details that go in between it. And we joke around here too. I mean, the amount of issues and challenges that we come across building fence, it's like we're just putting six together, guys. Here, it's like, what's the big deal? The guy ordered a sirloin, get the guy a sirloin. It's just like, why'd we bring the crab legs out if it's a sirloin? It There is so many little variables in between the lines. And then you get into a backyard, and every backyard's different. We're not building the roof. We don't know what we're doing with underground digging conditions. We don't know where the sprinkler lines are at. Property lines are, we're kind of making our best guess on those and relying that the customer is pointing out the best. There's just so many variables. Which side the pickets are going to be in, where's the gate swinging, that we do our best to handle all that stuff. But building fence is tough. So once again, it's like one fence and you're there for the whole entire project. Pretty easy, times it by 10. Go build 1,000 fences in a year and get back to me. I mean, the amount of issues and challenges that come our way. But at the end of the day, another reason why I really like fencing is because it's pretty simple. We're not building a house here. We don't have all those variables, but still, there's not, compared to most industries, there's not a lot of big, great fencing companies out there. And that's why there's a lot of challenges to it. And it takes a lot of effort and care to grow a company the size of the Fence Guys.
Yeah.
So hope I answered your question.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to unpack a couple of those things. So the one, I love that milestone of the calls, because anybody that's answering all their calls right now, I know that you have to do in the beginning, but my God, is that the biggest like weight off your shoulders if you can find someone that's good at that. And I had the similar experience. I have Matilde from our team that does all that. Oh my gosh, like not having to deal with spam calls or just like qualifying, like that is the most useful thing you could ever hire for at least for ours, and it sounds like for yours too. But just not having to worry about that. I mean, you have all these frustrations that constantly come in. If you see all these spam calls and you're already like overworked and tired and you're dealing with, something on the job site, whatever, and then you see a call come in, like if you're anything like me, the thought of picking up that call and dealing with that is like the biggest pain ever. So
Yeah.
I mean, it just would drive me crazy, and I would be the same way. I would have to get back to people. I just couldn't do it or whatever. So anybody that hasn't done that yet, I'd highly recommend doing, as soon as you can afford it, that's something that would be a really good idea. And you can also get answering services you pay like based on volume. So you don't have to hire someone in-house necessarily. But I think the biggest of all those that I really want to talk about was the whole caring portion of it, because that is like a pandemic, I think, across like all business in general. And it's like seems like it's making a turn where now that we can, review and call people out and say, the experience that you had, that people are kind of forced into actually having, providing that great experience as well, not just whatever the product and service is. But that's something I spend a lot of time trying to like really dial in and think of different ways to kind of show how we care. And it's always a work in progress, but I'm curious to see like how you did that because you just said you have 10 crews, you have a lot of employees. Like how did you get the people that you hired, like what did you look for, or how did you instill that to make sure that care, because like you said, you have one job and it's like you're there. If you're just by yourself, you can manage the whole thing no problem and you can show how much you care or whatever. But if you have 10 different job sites going on, like how do you any thoughts on how you like kind of get the rest
Yeah,
on the same page?
right off the bat, man, I try not to miss any details. And if I pay attention to any little issue, and what I've always tried to do is talk to those people how I would have handled that situation. And remember, I care about every little detail. So I'm just, I don't want to be that boss. And I wouldn't even consider us that we're not nitpicking every little thing. Okay. I have a lot of trust in the guys I work for after time, but as they first start out with us, I am really big on them spending a lot of time with me, and them knowing everything I know top to bottom. And then, as you know, and remember, another beautiful thing about this, I built this. I've done every position from bottom to top, other than maybe the bookkeeping stuff that our bookkeeper does, but I've done everything. So I know what's possible out of somebody when, I got a guy out in the yard yesterday that's pulling weeds. You know what I mean? I've been that guy before. It's been a while, but I know how hard a work that is. So I went to Chipotle and bought him a big fat burrito, like yesterday, and gave it to him because I appreciate what he was doing, and I know the sweat coming down his face, what effort he was putting into it. So I think I constantly critique everything that's being done around here, and I point it out. And that's one of the things that's tough with management. Nobody wants to constantly be like, "Oh, you're doing it wrong." You know what I mean? That's the art of it. So I am understanding, but I am consistently showing them, "Hey, this is the way that I like it done. Okay, this is the way I need it done. I understand." Or I'll give them a chance to talk, but at the end of the day, so back to the care thing, man, I'm all over it. Um, 'Cause I've done it before and I know what's capable of it. And when I hire these guys from the beginning, I've been fortunate too that I have a big network of people. Most people have come to me without me. Trying to think, almost all of my employees, because we have a lot of subcontractor crews as well that build for us. But almost all of the hiring has been done within. And remember, we didn't rush to build this thing, so it was slow over time. But it's kind of everybody's been inside the circle. A lot of people are from my hometown in Iowa and in Illinois. But we have had to do some hiring too. But once again, when I sit down with somebody, honesty means the most to me. So I sit down with these people and I try to just see that I've got a genuine, honest, caring person in front of me. Personality and care is everything. I know I can train them to do what they need to do, but once they get here is really when they get shaped. And remember, I've kind of shaped all of our important positions into what they're good at and what they like to do. So that's been the kind of key of it too. And there's been plenty of bumps in the road. Um, but I just think that, choosing a good, honest, caring person to start with, and then just kind of critiquing without being over the top, without micromanaging. We don't micromanage here. I have a lot of trust in these guys that's built over time, but I think a lot of the guys that I have really great talents, but in some other areas of them, they didn't work out at a corporation or whatever, right? Where I was a little bit more understanding about whatever that was, and I saw what they were highly skilled at, and we ran with that. So we've kind of slowly but surely shaped the company, and I don't micromanage, but at the same time, I'm a detail guy, so I'm constantly paying attention to that. And I'm not scared. I don't sit on stuff. If I got an issue and I got something to talk about somebody, I'm coming.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk to you about it. And like I said, I'm going to approach it in a caring way. I'm not an a-hole. I'm not going to rip their head off, but we're going to address it and we're going to move on from it.
Yeah.
So I think that's been kind of the key to success.
Yeah. So less of like the whole old school, like reprimanding type, punishment stuff, and more of like, trying to find a solution, show that you care and they're not just an employee, but you're trying to make a solution, let them know it's a serious thing and it's got to be corrected too.
Yeah.
Would you say that's
We,
kind of a good way of
we
putting
do
it?
have to be realistic that, at the end of the day, we're a construction company and, the people coming through the doors aren't, these aren't people with master's degrees and, looking for the corporate lifestyle. So we have to kind of match what we've got. But it's been very good to me putting in trust in those people who I felt are good-hearted people. And it's been successful for me helping them grow along the way and always being that leader. I don't ever let the bar down. If something's not the way that we need it to be, the hammer's coming in a caring way.
Yeah. And would you say like your top guys kind of just followed suit? So like everyone kind of gets that from, the top guys that are doing a lot of the management, whatever that looks like, is that culture been instilled into them? So you kind of see it being passed on, like maybe your example, the whole Chipotle burrito. Do you see them doing things like that, that kind of notice, or, I don't know, is it kind
Yeah, no doubt. But I've also, everyone's their own man or woman, but I don't, definitely the culture has been what I've started from the beginning when I was just one crew. It absolutely is. But of course, and like I said earlier too, there's been a lot of guys that have come in here and they've made it even better. They're better at their positions than I ever could have been. I've got guys building fence for me that built a better fence than I built back in the day. You know what I'm saying? So like there's been a lot of people that made this company great. It's not just me, but if you say it's a culture at the end of the day, it's definitely that starting point of what I started. And but hey, other guys have brought other things to the table and done things better than I could have. So I've run with that as well too. So no, it's not just all me.
Gotcha.
But
Okay. And you're talking about like in the beginning you would like oversee everything, and then you're always paying attention to all these details. Did you create like SOPs or things to like have the crews follow, as you kind of move backwards? Or I mean, how did, was it all hands-on training? Like how did you pass on your knowledge as you grew like pretty rapidly, I guess?
you know what? For me, this is kind of interesting. I I would say at the beginning, when I was like two, maybe three crews, and we just got in our first serious shop, kind of shooting from the hip a little bit and trying to figure it all out. And actually uh, hired my sister Amber, and she came in, and she was the one that really said, "Okay, guys, we're not building fences without deposits. Okay. I realize you've just been building fences and getting the money later and everything's worked out for you. But I see where this company's going to, and we can't do that. And as far as like you want to put this in place, well, we need a process." So then, she kind of helped us really kick that off and start to put in processes. And then not only to put a process in place, and I still have this today, especially my project manager, processes. Sometimes we get so busy and we're getting pulled different directions, we'll skip a process, so really, um, that's a hot button, especially for me right now. We have so many processes put in place, and not only is it me now, but it's my nephew Nate, my GM, it's Corey, it's Jamie. We're all making sure that all these processes get followed. Um, so we try to make this thing bulletproof. But you're only as good as you following the processes. So yes, all of this stuff is definitely written down. We have processes to follow. We all know them. And when there's somebody that new comes to a board, all the processes are right there for them to see, and it's all to be followed. But things get crazy and wild sometimes, especially in the spring. We all know in fencing, April, May, baby, hold on.
Yeah.
It's a wild time. But at the end of the day, each one of your customers deserves that same product that they were going to get in March. So you got to figure that out. And then here's another deal in Denver that we deal with a lot too is, we get these wild windstorms, and the companies that have grown, that are out there, that you can find their number online and their marketing. When we get these windstorms, you might go from 30 phone calls to, I was just about to say 300. That might be a little rough. I mean, I remember one time my phone rang 150 times for fences in April. We had a big windstorm. Okay. And that was in one day. So you just think you're a little small fence company that's getting 30 phone calls a day. You can get 150 phone calls in one day. What are you going to do? Okay. And there's a big fencing company around here, and they got smoked on reviews a couple years ago when a tornado came through right down by their facility, and they couldn't handle the phone calls. So what did everybody do? They ran to Google and they smoked them, and that's unfortunate because I'm sure every industry is the same way. But man, we build so many great fences, and we even ask for the reviews, and we get so good reviews, so few reviews. We get 3 or 4 a week. Oh, great. But like, man, I know that we did 15 awesome, happy customers fences this week.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's so hard to get that review. It's so hard to get them to take that 5 minutes to go give you the review. And we're the same way. We go to restaurants and have a great meal, and you don't think about giving them a review. So reviews are hard to come by, but it all goes back to, how prepared you are, how many processes you have put into place, because even though we're just a simple fence company putting sticks together, there's a million variables, and you need to think of processes. And all I've been thinking about processes for 15, 18 years, however long I've been doing this. Well, I'm going to tell you what, on the whiteboard today, I put together another 2 or 3 processes. So it's just like my buddy Jeremy up in Montana that drives a jet boat. He goes, I've been driving a jet boat down this river for 30 years, and I'm going to tell you something right now. I learn something every single time I take this out. And that's a guy with great detail. You know what I'm saying? You want to be learning something. You never know it all. You constantly want to be getting better. And these businesses, especially on a big scale like Denver Fence Guys is, they take a lot of detail and care and following up and constantly thinking, how can I get better? There is no easy button.
Yeah. Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, I am like curious with I guess with your procedures, like, are you like you said, a whiteboard that really like caught my attention. So you're like, is that how you're putting them on there? Like, you categorizing them like on a whiteboard, or you have like, how are those all seen by the team?
Google Drive.
Oh, okay. Okay. So like
We have 'em all, we have them all on Google Drive as far as what position you are and what procedures to follow. And
gotcha.
then the whiteboard more so is, we have a whiteboard here that is, I think, 8 foot by 4 foot, big old whiteboard. Okay. So what we do is we're constantly putting things on the whiteboard. Okay. Now, when all the guys come in on Tuesdays, we have a big breakfast in here. We have a big flat tap in the kitchen inside of our sales room here. We all get together. There's our opportunity to go over the things that were challenges for the week, or sales ideas, or product knowledge. So it's all written there. So when I get going, the first thing we do is Nate, the GM, he reads the reviews for the weeks. Get the clapping going, get the the meeting kind of set, get the mood set. And then we'll go into talking about, any issues we come across, and hey, watch out for this. What we want is a beautiful experience for the customer. So that was what that is all about. And also at the same time, we want these jobs ready to go too. So if our guys miss something, and I think one thing recently is like some of the sales guys don't have little tape measures out there. They just have their wheel. Well, guess what? When we're building a custom gate over a 49, 50-inch sidewalk, and we build a 48-inch custom gate before we get there, and there's not enough room for the latch and everything like that, that's an issue. Okay, so now we got an open fence. We got to come back, weld a different gate, go there, like, so those are the little details, like, hey, I expect you guys on any of these custom gates, you need a tape measure, you need to be measuring that sidewalk, because that's one of the details that I don't want to miss, so it's just constantly little things like that. And we keep touching base on them, constantly trying to get better.
Gotcha. Yeah. It's never perfect, I guess, right? There's always something
Yeah.
to do, and it's impossible to get it 100% right. Um,
Yeah.
okay, I have one more question because I was curious, like the how you like structure the organization, because like at least with my agency, I have an org chart that I had to spend a lot of time like figuring that out. Do you do something like that where you kind of? I'm curious, like how you have your team underneath you, like what you found is like the ideal structure of your team members. Do you have anything set in stone like that?
You know, really, that's been kind of shooting from the hip, and part of the beauty of growing slow. We have definitely an org chart. We definitely have, a couple years ago, I had everybody kind of list out all their duties, all their tasks, and what's on their plate, day to day, week to week, month to month. We've got all that stuff listed. That's a corporate deal. Maybe we could be a little bit more organized in that area, but I'm just being straight up with you. I don't. I, we've grown into our positions.
Mhm.
Uh, we know how busy we are. I know that underneath what I have for an office, who I have answering the phones, what we're capable in our yard of loading up crews with, I know how much I can build in a week underneath our current model. So I know that over time, but I never did any research to say, like, okay, another company that's doing the same amount of revenue as us, like how many people do they have in the office? Or I've just always kind of looked at, the challenges and the needs and got into that. Now, one thing like this, we're talking about possibly adding another project manager right now, just especially during the busier times, because I have noticed that when we got into a certain point, that we are stretching our project manager a little thin for the processes that we run. But I have never compared it to another one. It's just kind of all been trial and error and making sure I'm not overworking anybody. But that's what our Wednesday office meetings are for. That's when we lay on the table what we have, and then there was a time where materials were kind of getting screwed up for next week's job. We were missing a job. Well, that's another thing. Okay, process, boys. Okay, Thursday meeting with the yard manager, the project manager, the GM, and then the guy that's adding up our materials. You all get together. You go through every file for the job, and let's just double, if not triple, check and make sure all those materials are here, all the custom order stuff's here, all those packs are ready to go. So it's just been a trial and error. I haven't really followed too much of what other people are doing. I've just paid attention to what's going on here and put it in place.
Yeah. I guess hiring as you need it, or you found something, I guess you need to delegate, or a task that you were doing, I guess, because that was probably some of that too. Just
Yep. Oh no, absolutely. It's been trial and error. And then also, it's like we have hiccups. We mess up on stuff. We bend over backwards for that customer. We go take care of it. We make sure that every customer we ever built for is happy. I can honestly say that. Every customer we've ever built for in the 18 years I've been doing this is happy. Okay. It may have been a bumpy ride, but when we were done, we took care of it. We may have lost money on the job, but we took care of it. But moving forward, it would pain me to do that again. So I'm definitely doing everything I can for that never to happen again. And that's where you start to see, okay, we need to put this in place. So there is nothing off of AI that I've got a list. Or, another thing I was going to bring up too is like, starting a business today, you have so many tools. You think back of 2010, the internet was so young. There was no AI. There was no all these answering services, like me, I look in a phone book to find somebody. There were so many challenges to get a business started back then, where now you can go to AI and they'll create a business plan for you. But there is no shortcuts, though, at the end of the day, for caring and bending over backwards and taking care of your customers and following through with great care and effort. There is no shortcuts for that. And that's where you're seeing the lack of it now. And you're starting to see too private equity, big dollar guys buying up market shares in big cities, and they're coming for every single industry, and they're starting to pop up here in Denver too, and we see a difference in those companies. Okay, now you don't have that family owned business, you don't have that guy that cares, now it's based off all how much money can I make,
Yeah.
how thin can I be with stuff, how cheap can I pay somebody, but yet they've got all the good marketing tactics, they've got the money and capital behind them. But now you've got one guy that really earned it all, and he's trying to run 20 fence companies. It's just not the quality of somebody who's built something, who's there every day. It's just like restaurants. You go to a restaurant and the owner's there, and man, it's a beautiful experience. The front door is clean. He's checking on every table. That's going to be a beautiful experience. But you go to that guy that's got several restaurants, that restaurant that he's not at all the time, it's just not as good. Okay. And they just don't care. And there's just little things. And of course, you get the Texas Roadhouse story, but they're one of millions, okay, that have made it. And it's the same deal now we're dealing with because of after COVID, we're seeing all this money. The rich got richer and they're buying up everything and they're taking and they're coming for me and they've taken some of my market share. Okay. And I'm seeing uh, the customers that they've dealt with. I see their products in town and they're okay. Okay. But they're not wowing anybody. And it's kind of a shame to see, but we're all dealing with it. I saw it in the goose hunting market. Okay. All these little goose hunting decoy companies, all of a sudden here come the big money and everything's from China now. The quality's not there. They're no longer decoys that you can just throw in the trailer and use them for 20 years. If you want to use them for 20 years, you got to build racks and keep them from rubbing on each other. And it's the same deal with the fence companies, and it's the same deal with the roofing companies, and it's on down the line. It's things are changing, and there's less and less of that family owned small companies out there. So I definitely know that there is a lack of great fencing companies in this country, especially big ones. There's a lot of good small fence companies, there is, but there's a lack of big ones, and our communities would be better if guys chased their dream and built some big fence companies, because there's a need for it. And for the most part, when you drive through big cities, little cities, whatever, there's a lot of embarrassing fences around because they went with that cheaper little guy, or they knew somebody, and or like they knew even a finished carpenter that is an awesome carpenter. He can build a great fence, but he doesn't do it every day, and we can pick apart those little things. There needs to be more fence companies out there, and there needs to be better ones out there, and there needs to be people that care. That's going to be a lot better than this private equity taking over all of our big cities and all of our fencing.
Yeah. I like that a lot. I mean, I think about that a lot too, because private equity, I guess, is they seem to go after like roofers first or plumbing and HVAC, and then now they're making their way to fencing. Not a whole lot in decking yet, surprisingly, but um, you know, I think about like, when they come in and take over a company and they just want the infrastructure, they want all the employees so they can do everything for them. And then the owner, I guess, sells, so he's out of there. So like, I can't imagine how hard that would be to like remove the owner and buy this company and then just kind of trust that everything's going to go well, and then not see like crazy turnover from the whole crews. Because if you shake things up and you start doing everything completely different, it's got to be a lot of guys quitting. I would think, they want to get out of there. They don't like how it's changed. And um I don't know, would you agree with that? Do you think a lot of people just don't like it?
Yeah, that's definitely the word on the street out there. I had a really good friend of mine that sold his bathroom remodel company a couple years ago, and they got bought out by another company that was buying. They bought out maybe 15 of them, and of course, They run all underneath the same management, underneath the CRM, same CRM. And that story actually, I know that a guy just retired from that company that had been there for a very long time. I know they still got the same management in place. You know, that, not to say they're all bad, because that's not fair to say. But I think the big picture is there's a lot of people building businesses in a hurry right now to turn around and to sell to the private equity. And I have a lot of questions to see what's going to happen to those companies. And just back to the goose decoy story, you know, for the most part, it has not been good, because what are those guys going to do? They're going to come in there and run as thin as possible to make as much money possible. And what is that going to leave you with? You know, it's not going to leave you with a great product, and it's not going to leave you with a lot of care, because they're, you know, they're paying guys less money and yada, yada, yada. But it's obviously, there's some people out there doing it right. So it's not for everybody, but from the big picture, that seems to be the horror story that you hear.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, God, I can only imagine. And yeah, I guess like, yeah, kind of the moral of the story is, I mean, you gotta find a way for your team to, I guess, care as much as you do, do the things that you would, or do things the way that you would do them. So it kind of goes throughout the culture, aside from just selling or anything like that. But I'm curious so somebody that's, now that we're getting kind of towards the end here, if there is a fencing company that's, say like 1 to 2 crews, maybe not just themselves and, 3 guys, but maybe 1 or 2 or 3 crews. Any thoughts on like, I know we covered a million things, but what would be those levers that you would pull to like get to the next level? Maybe it's not all the way to where you are, but
Yeah.
4, 5, 6, 7, something like that, that next level, I guess. Any thoughts on what you would recommend doing?
Yeah, I definitely like the walking before you run approach. Take your time doing it, and really, you know, really, I had a mentor, a couple of them, you know, starting out my business back in the day when I was installing fences in Illinois and Iowa. I got to sit down with, a guy that ran. His name was Tom Lovewell. I got to sit down with him once in a while, and he's a really awesome guy, and he only hoped for the best for me, and I think he saw a lot of potential in me, and I was one crew at the time, and I was going to start two. And he said, "Hey, I want you to realize something right now. Just because you have 2 crews doesn't mean twice the amount of money." He goes, "It actually might mean the same amount of money." And what he meant by that was, when you start, when you're running and doing everything yourself, overhead is pretty cheap, you know. But when you start to grow, remember, you start to market. Remember, the city's going to start taking a look at you. You know, they're going to start auditing you. You're going to have more costs. You got 2 trucks. You got 2 insurance. And remember, you're getting bigger now. You might have been just rolling off your residential or your residential insurance, just your normal personal insurance for your truck. Well, now you got to get commercial insurance. Okay. And then you got to raise up your limits way high. So your $1,000 a year that you might have been spent on insurance, that might be $4,000 now. Actually, I mean, I bet it will be. So that's each truck. Okay. And now you start to got more things to maintain, you know, and so now you need a guy to help work on your equipment. Now you need the phone ring no more. So now you're going to start spending money to make the phone ring. Now it's just you. Now you need another sales guy. Remember, these are guys that you're all going to have to start to manage and to put time in and to make sure that they're doing things the way you are. So there just gets to be challenges with that. And of course, you know, you get a nice crew in there and they're doing the same work you're doing, and then all of a sudden, I'm going to start my own fence company. You get that. So then you lose the crew. So now you're looking at somebody, but yet you got work on your table and you're trying to catch up with things. Your phone's ringing. Mary Smith's wondering when you're coming to build her fence. Bam, you get smoked with the bad review because you told her you're going to be out next week. Now you're not out for 2 weeks. So now you start to have things piling up on you. And remember, you're out there marketing. So your phone's ringing more and more and more. And you're trying to find somebody. And oh, remember, it's springtime and no one's looking for work. You know what I mean? So like, there just gets to be so many challenges that you need to make sure you're prepared for that, and backup plans, and being upfront and real with your customers, and being honest, and not using excuses. One thing I've seen in business too, so many people want to use excuses about stuff be upfront and honest with people, and it'll go so far. So just know those challenges are coming. Know that you're going to have to do, when you start to grow, you're going to have to do things the right way. You can no longer roll without workers comp. Okay. You can get by with liability insurance and no workers comp for a little while. And yeah, you can sign off to take the liability off of the state. But once you start to roll at 2 crews, it's over. You will need workers' comp insurance, and that is huge money. That was hundreds of thousands of dollars for me last year, was paying workers' comp.
Mm.
So, and of course, that all depends on how much your payroll is and stuff. But remember, oh, okay, now, like I remember too, we did a home show here in Denver. Well, guess who was walking around the home show? Somebody that worked for the city, an auditor, that wanted to make sure that we had employees, not subcontractors. So guess what? That was an audit. They came in, wanted to see what everybody was doing, who was actually a sub, who was actually an employee, so, and it just, it's on down the
Wow.
line that once you jump, okay, you better be ready for those challenges, the extra money, the extra responsibility, because you don't want to burn your reputation too, because those bad reviews will live with you forever. And
Yep.
remember, Google wants to recommend good fence companies too. So guess what? You start burning reputation, phone gets quiet. Okay, well, now, that guy working for you, he still needs his paycheck on Friday. He's counting on you to put food on the table for his family. So now you don't have enough work, so just make sure that you're prepared to jump. And it's not as easy as saying, hey, I'm making this much a month right now. If I get another crew, I'm going to make this much more. Yeah, be prepared, because it's a big jump. And then, so like, you're not going to make any money off that second crew. Okay. When you get a third crew, you start to make a little bit more. Fourth, things start to roll, and then, once you get from there, you can really start to make good money. This is a great industry. This is, there's good profit margin, because we're dealing with so many variables and all the challenges that we talked about. It does pay well, but you better be ready for everything that's coming at you, because running a one crew fence company is tough, but it's easy compared to running a 5 crew, 10 crew, 15 crew, multiple locations, all those challenges that are to come with it. Obviously, I did it. Anybody can do it, but it takes great care and great effort and consistently being on top of all the details.
Yeah. And time too. I mean, like, don't expect it to just be a couple years and you get everything you want. I mean, minimum, I would say, what, 10 years is kind of what you have to do to, I mean, what you're going on probably 20 years now in business, right?
Yeah, close to 18. If you get
Yeah.
a good with all the tools you have now online, and you have a good mentor, and you're a sharp guy that is going to come through and do everything you say, I think you can do it quicker than that. But that was always the saying, 10 years.
Yeah.
And really, um, for me, um, it might have happened a little bit sooner than that, but not much. For me, I was close to a 10-year guy until we were really off the ground and rolling.
Yeah.
So I like staying debt free. I like saving your money. You're going to go through tough times. We're in a tough time now. Demand is down. But you know what? We're still humming. We haven't laid anybody off. And there's just going to be challenges along the way, depending on what stage you're at in your business. And the one we're dealing with right now is marketing, as long as all the other big fence companies right now. And we're fortunate to have you on our side helping us through all that. But there's some things that you're not going to be able to handle yourself, and you're going to need to have good guys on your side helping you out. So yeah, that's who
Yeah.
they always say is, you are who you hang out with. That's a
Yeah.
similar thing in business. Who you surround yourself with, who you choose to keep around. You might not have made a good decision, but that's going to be a big thing with you growing well, is who's keeping the bar high around you as well.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. All right. We're getting kind of towards the end here. Is there anything additional, things you'd like to share? Anything you'd like to say, I guess, to the people that are listening that are trying to be like you?
Yeah. Well, I'm just a normal guy, man, out here, and I just treat people with respect, and I'm always trying to be humble about this, and I'm only as good as the guys around me. So I think if you go at that with that in mind, sky's the limit. And don't run before you can walk, and take one thing at a time. And I've always tried to do everything the right way, even though it's cost me extra money. Tried to do it the right way. Uh, haven't cheated things. And at the end of the day, man, it's led towards it's equaled success for me. So I would just recommend those things. And like we always talk about, man, care and honesty is a beautiful thing as a business owner, and it helps you grow relationships. And when you get to my point, it's all about my relationships with my networking people and all the people that work for me. That seems to be the key recipe for people in my position. They're good at relationships. So
Yeah.
that's my advice. So
Nice.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
go ahead.
you're good.
Oh, I was going to say, anybody could ever reach out to me as well with any questions. I like helping people out. There's been a lot of people that have helped me out on my journey to be where I'm at. And hey man, I love fences. I don't drive by fences. I love going to different towns and seeing fences and seeing the fence signs, and I'm really big on marketing right now. So I'm watching everybody's ads around the country, and always pay attention to what those bigger companies are doing. That's a good my buddy Chris Bowling told me that too. He's like, always pay attention to what the big guys are doing and do the same. So sky's the limit, baby.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on here. And I mean, that was one of my favorite episodes. I mean, you went into more detail than most of our guests. I know everybody that's listening got a lot out of it, and you're definitely the first that has offered to talk with anybody that listens to the podcast. So I mean, I would absolutely jump on that if I was listening to it and I was a fence company. But yeah, I mean, Barrett, I appreciate you coming on here. Definitely lived up to the hype and kind of what I was hoping for. And just going forward with the Fence and Deck Mastery podcast, we're kind of back on track now with our episodes, and just about once a week we're releasing something new. Trying to we'll get some new guests on here. I'm going to be doing some solo episodes too, some more targeted stuff. But now that we are kind of getting closer to the colder weather, so we're almost in September now at the time of recording. It's getting to a point where, if you want to be ready for spring, doing things like SEO, getting your website, your online presence dialed in is a really good time for that. So feel free to reach out to us at our website, deckfencemarketers.com, or follow us on social media. But that's it. Barrett, appreciate you coming on here again. And yeah, I'm sure we'll be on a call here again soon.
Yep. Thanks, Alex, for having me on, buddy.
Yep. Thanks.